Hey everybody, my name is Manly Sitter. I'm VP Education for ASCM Western Canada. Um, we're going to introduce you to Gary Newbury, and he's going to be speaking on job search and that, also hinting towards networking. We have about 135 people registered for the session tonight. It is going to be recorded. We'll edit a bit and then put it onto Gary's YouTube channel. So hopefully you've all had a chance to go through the video that was made available to you from a previous session because Gary's going to be talking about that. I am going to share the screen shortly. I'm just going to get started. Gary, please go ahead, and I'm just going to go on mute and we'll get started.
Okay, if you can share the screen, it'd be great. I hope everybody's feeling good today. Normally, because I've just got a shirt on rather than a jacket, I would actually encourage everybody to stand up, get their screens on, and kind of stretch around because I think with most of my presentations, the best way to absorb the information I'm giving people is to try and change your state. Now, if you're, 6 o'clock in Vancouver, 9 o'clock with my colleagues from Ontario, many of us will have our feet on the table and going, oh, just get through this somehow and go to bed. I don't want you to think that way. I want you to really engage in this presentation because it's fundamental, maybe, to how you progress your rest of your career. So this session relies on the fact that, let's hope, that you've actually watched the podcast I released a couple of weeks ago. Even if you did it at 1.5 speed, you would have probably picked up that there's an existing approach which most people, including me, hands up, including me, have tried to do when we've been job searching for a job. I'm currently not job searching for a job, I'm looking for work. And I believed I was following like the way it needed to be done, but it was taking an ever such a long time to get results. And it occurred to me over probably the last 6 months, having I do a lot of judging, and as a result of that, students, newcomers, whatever, connect with me, and the first thing on their mind is, and it emerges very quickly in conversations. Oh, I've just had this job and it didn't go well, or a job interview and it didn't go well, or I'm just about to leave college or an university, and I need to find a co-op or a job or a newcomer. How do I job search around here? And up until about 6 months ago, maybe a year ago, I said, well, you need to understand three components of a traditional job search. You need to know the role, the industry, and the location. If you get that mastered and don't say, well, I've done this, I've done that, and whatever, and you pick and choose what it is that you want me to do, if you can just get down to that, you'll be fine. And that presupposes that we live in a world where transferable skills are the currency of an effective job search. So I'm Gary Newbury. If we can just turn on to the next page. But when you get this, no doubt, Manly will send out this presentation. If you didn't catch the podcast and all the links I sent to people on my profile, on my own company page and whatever, is on the front page of this presentation. So just a little bit background about me. I've had 20 years of interim C-level leadership expertise or experience. I've been in the B2C or the retail consumer-driven supply chain for more than 30 years now. And I did have a career before that, although I've got rather boyish looks. I am relatively older than most people. And I've worked in 60 different environments on 90 different assignments. Probably at least half of those have been mission critical. I've had extensive experience across mid-market organizations within manufacturing, CPG, FMCG, if you're in a different part of the world, third-party logistics, distributors, wholesalers, retailers, of course, we might say, and last mile providers, across the three major categories of automotive, general merchandise, and food and health. General merchandise is, if you went into a mall, pretty much everything you see there is general merchandise. And I've delivered more than $100 million worth of actual profit improvements while I've been in situ. My practice focus is on rapid performance recovery, so operational business turnarounds and strategic performance transformation. That's the kind of slow down version of what I do. It's when we kind of stand back and say, what do we really want this business to look like? What's our strategic intent? How do we develop the capabilities and how do we execute the plan? My rapid performance recovery is like, right, roll up the sleeves, let's get stuck in. This business needs some help. In terms of leadership style, and I have this, I did this slide for a recent guest lecture at Humber College, in fact, and I said that not all leaders are made the same, and as a somewhat differentiator, I'm very high energy individual, very sort of hands-on, leading from the front kind of thing, and you have to be that way if you're going to run turnarounds. I've done considerable amount of technology and process re-engineering, change management, and we all might have a view about change management. I have a very clear definition of that being like something we think about when we're doing our SWOT analysis, not something we think about after we've implemented the system and we have to run around and tell everybody which buttons to press to get, to get the delivery booked in and all that kind of stuff. And simply, my slogan is, I rebuild, or perhaps I rebuild things others break fast, fearlessly, and for sustainable results. Now, I ask you to please subscribe to my Retail Aid channel on YouTube. Please. I'm trying to get up to 500 because I want to get clear messages out to people, a big audience, and I'm on a mission to try and help thousands, hopefully, of people in Canada, particularly in the supply chain, to think about the job search in a different way. Now, I've taken the 5 minutes to explain a little bit about myself. It's not a shameless plug. What it is to tell you I'm not invested in the career consulting industry. I'm not going to talk about, the style of your resume. I'm not going to tell you about how to handle recruiters. I'm not going to be able to tell you how to get through the ATS machine. So if you come for that, you're completely in the wrong presentation. What I am going to tell you about is a different way of looking at this process. And I think the process that we've all been following at some stage in our career is fundamentally flawed. So, Manny, if you could flip to the next slide. See, when we think about the job search, let me just sort of stop myself here. This presentation is going to be about 15 minutes, and the rest of the time we're going to have hopefully an interaction. And I want you to ask me the most difficult question about job searching that you have that you prepared specially for me. So, if we can just get through towards the end of the presentation, then I'll let you loose. In a traditional job search, we have to think about, we sell ourselves, we sell what we need. You see at the top of the page, this is what we are, this is what we might need. Perhaps if you go back 20 years, you used to have a career objective up there, and the advice was to take that off. But it was like, this is about me, and my ambitions. And the poor buyer, the person who's going to employ us, was like a feature somewhere in our job search process. But actually, what we found from, say, the Great Recession onwards, the buyer was the decision maker, and we needed to change how we think about the job search anyway. And I'm going to give you another dimension of this. So, Manny, if you can click again. So if we had a product and we wondered how we wanted to, how we get it into the marketplace, we'd probably, if we had a marketing team in our company, we'd run down the corridor and go and talk to our marketing people, and they would tell us initially two things. They would say, if you can click again, please, Manly. They would say you have to target specific segments, so that those segments might be differentiated by benefits received or needs, or demographics or psychographics or some aspect. We would really need to understand very deeply what those needs were, and the people who exhibited those needs, we'd need to know those people, those companies in this case, very intimately. We wouldn't just launch a product in the market and say, how's it going, guys? So as we develop that understanding of the buyers, and we might actually go and find some just to test our proposition. We build trust before we make the pitch, and we adapt the offer to the need that's being expressed back to us. A bit of, let's say, design thinking, that we start with a mold of something. We go to the market and say, what does that look like? What would you like to see on this? And people might say, oh, I'd like it in blue and a nice chrome strip round it and 19-inch wheels. And oh, okay, we'll take that back and have a look at that and see if we can make that work. The reality of a job search, as we currently play it, is we broadcast the same product without real customization to everybody. The career consulting industry says we need to develop a brand so we can broadcast that out to everybody. We sell a fixed product, or in our cases, a resume. We apply cold and we just hope for luck. Hope is not a strategy. And in the situations that we actually get a meeting, maybe we get through the screening, we get in front of somebody who can, get us on that path to a job. We tell stories according to a job title, the industry, and the location. And this is where I think we've got this real misframing of what we're trying to do in a job search. We have, if we can imagine the decision maker sitting there, somebody's walked out of their team, or the team's reshaped or something, and they've got a gap. They know in the short term what that gap really looks like, what jobs need to be done, what responsibilities need to be held by that job holder. We come in with our hold on with our resume and our stories and stuff, and say, well, I'm just going for, like, you're in the retail industry, you kind of got a title VP supply chain, and I know you're in the GTA or GVA. So we've got a real mismatch of things going on there. And so it's really quite pot luck whether or not we land a job. And we may be good enough, and maybe job searching isn't failing because you're not great. And I don't know how many people we've got. I'm just going to have I can't actually see the count here. Oh, we've got 32. I'm sure that in 32 people that are on this call, we've got a huge talent pool of people. But the process is failing because you're not thinking like a marketeer. Remember, on the left-hand side, we have targeting the specific segments. We're knowing the buyer intimately. We're building trust, and we're adapting our offer to the actual need of our buyer. Okay, Manly. So putting it a different way around, if you're a router, sorry, I should say a router, I think, over here. If you're a router, would you ship a load without knowing a specific destination, requirements, and location restrictions? Logistics leaders don't hope that somehow there'll be some kind of receiving dock might be ready somewhere in town. What they do know is they know the location, they know the location restrictions, they pick the route, they pick the equipment, the driver, and the time of departure to arrive at that location at specifically the time or within the time window that the customer wants. And yet job searchers, they apply blind, they assume they're going to be relevant somehow, and they just wait for acceptance. So we press that easy apply on LinkedIn or on Indeed, we send resumes off, maybe covering letters, and we just hope that somehow something happens. So we're out of control on the process. If we think about supply chain managers, they think about the right product at the right place at the right time, and they're executing this precision logistics in how they do things. But our job search actually doesn't look like that at all. Okay. Click again, please. So the reason why I made the original podcast and why I'm here today is, having judged out the ASCM student case comp a couple of years, I've got lots of students reaching out to me talking about job search. I also recently judged at Schulich for CITT and Loblaws. Lots of students from their MBA and MSc supply chain programs came, connected with me. We had conversations. I was basically having the same conversation over and over again, having a great time. But after I had 5 or 6 calls in a day, by the end of the day, I was like reduced to a shivering mess on the floor because I was saying the same thing over and over again. I thought the better thing would be to actually produce a podcast where where I could give out all that information out in advance. So if somebody wanted, if another student sort of said, like, can we have a chat? And I'd know it probably would be about the job search. So just read this, just watch this podcast and then come with questions as opposed to me having to start the process from scratch. But the key takeaways I hope that you got from watching the podcast is transferable skills are not enough. And we may want to talk about what transferable skills really are, but they're not enough to win you the game. Even great stories, especially if they're not completely relevant, are not enough. Many job searchers do not understand the employer buying logic. And the buying logic is this: until you make me feel that you understand me and my needs, I don't move forward. You don't move forward. Trust is not built by storytelling alone. The idea with the approach I'm talking about is to show up multiple times inside the organization, having advocates close to the decision maker to actually make all the difference. So in this scenario, I'm saying we need a company first, networking led and value driven approach. So what I found out when I came to Canada, and I don't have any update on this, but they said to me, many people said to me, people in the career consulting industry, let's say, plus lots of candidates who were looking for roles at the time, something like 85% of roles are actually filled by people who are known to a decision maker. So that would suggest 15% are through LinkedIn, through Indeed, through recruiters, through, company job boards and stuff like that. And remember that people who see things on these things will go straight into their network and say, hey, I've just seen that you've advertised for a job. I've been working with you on, with your team and talking about your company. Do I get a look in here? And of course they will do because they're already known to the company. They're known to the decision maker, perhaps, or certainly some people around the decision maker. So I think that's just where I want to leave that part of the conversation. But I would like to have a conversation now about search strategy, but rather than just like a question answer session about resume tactics, because I'm not going to tell you about font sizes and formats and all the other stuff that people seem to be very consumed by. So hold it, hold it. So if we can, has anybody got any questions that we'd like to kick off? Because you can throw anything around this, especially if you've watched the podcast, you'll know what kind of questions that you should be sort of formulating in your head about, gosh, this looks too good to be true. But what about X? What about Y? How about what's my anxieties or what's my concerns here to actually not abandon the other one, but try this other alternative approach? It's very quiet. If you can unmute yourself, you just dive straight in, please. Leon,
Sure,
would you like?
I have a question.
All right, Adam. Hi, how you
How's it
doing?
going, Gary?
Good.
Yeah, what's the best way of getting close to a decision maker?
Well, let's just stand back because this is an important part of where that whole podcast or the second half of that podcast was around. So as you let's just go through the process for the benefit of those people who didn't actually catch all the podcast. So the approach I'm suggesting is that you pick a number of companies that you find some alignment to, that they're just companies that you would love to work for or die to work for effectively, and just write them down. And it might be 10 companies just come to mind. Say, if you're in the retail space, you might say, Loblaws, Sobeys, who else can I say? Walmart, Amazon, whatever. So you list these companies, it might be 10 on a page. Then you just stand back from that and just look at it and say, which one, let's say 5 as a target, because there's a lot of work that has to go on beyond this. So you can sort of draw a line under which of the top 5 that you really sort of find some alignment with before you do anything else, and just ask yourself why. What is the why here that company is on that list? Once you've got your list, and it could be 2, it could be 5, it could be 7, it could be 12. I would suggest that you start with 4 or 5. Then you go and do some deep research. And I'm talking about not a couple of hours, I'm talking about probably 2 days on each company to really understand what makes that company tick. Look at the financials, look at everything on the internet you can do. What you're trying to do is build up a hypothesis of the issues that the company faces, the opportunities the company has, and maybe have 10 key areas of future conversation for every company that you can talk about at some level of competency. The reason for that is that you want to, once you've done your deep research on each company, you want to start reaching out to people you already know in those companies, and then you can use that list of, say, 10 points and say, hey, we haven't spoken for a little while, but I saw that you were recently doing X, Y, and Z. Could we have a chat about that? And the idea of you chatting about it is, one is you're trying to refine and get an up-to-date picture on that status of that one of those 10 points. And you're forming a relationship with somebody that obviously you kind of know, and now you're refreshing the relationship. And you're also seeing if there's what is the sort of ground, what's the culture in the organization, where might opportunities start to bubble up. If they haven't got an opportunity now, don't just hold off, because it doesn't mean dismiss the company. It means they just don't know you yet. And as you go through, like, developing more and more network contacts within that organization, you go through your list of 10 key issues, and you're refining these all the time. And you're looking for, so somebody's in marketing. What's the company been doing recently in marketing? I see they're doing, A, B, and C. Right. Let me reach out to a few marketing people and say, I've seen you've been doing, doing some digital transformation of your omni-channel widget or whatever. And it's trying to engage in a conversation. So over a LinkedIn invite, which will lead to a conversation where you're able to refine some of that detail again, form a relationship, etc., etc. And you keep going down this path until you've covered maybe 20 or 30% of the people inside the organization who may have a say about, where you might fit in. So how do you get close to a decision maker? Well, it's not necessarily you getting close to it. It's the people that you have built relationships with that tell you when something's just about to bubble up, if you haven't already spotted it yourself. Because the idea is, if you form good relationships with these people, that they will let you know. If you leave them with a good positive impression about your knowledge of the organization and also your communication skills, how they relate to each other, how you relate to the people you bump into, they will remember your name, remember a broad area you're particularly interested in. And when things start to surface around that, they will say, say for the director or VP of that area will say, oh gosh, somebody's just left, or we're reshaping this department, or we've got this new initiative, we need somebody, but who do we know? And that's when the advocate should pipe up, say, I've just recently seen Adam, really nice guy. Maybe we should have a chat with him. And that's where you start to break ground. This is before it's even become a real requirement. It's just a vague idea that we need somebody. And that's where, if you're able to have those advocates around that area to allow those opportunities to start to emerge and be communicated to you, that's when you're on the right path. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just hoping I have as good of social skills as you do to tame such things. But yeah, thanks, Gary. I appreciate your perspective on it.
Thank you. But remember, the idea of a deep research isn't just to sort of say, oh, yeah, I've been to the website and know a little bit about your company. It's actually to have maybe 10 points in different areas of the business, maybe some areas in the supply chain, some in marketing, some in real estate, some in manufacturing, some in et cetera, et cetera. So you've always got some kind of lever when you make those initiations of those contacts you don't know, that it's something that if you can imagine two things that you've probably experienced it yourself, and I experience it unfortunately all the time, where somebody just clicks on my name and I get an invite and I'm thinking, could you just tell me why you want to talk to me? Why do you want to come? You can follow me to your heart's content and we don't need to talk. But if you send me an invite, then I'm compelled to send you, can we have a chat? Sort of email. And so I have to look through their LinkedIn profile and say, I can't see the match, so I'll either ignore it or okay, I see some, yeah, I'll accept it and see what happens. But if they said to me, say if I was working for Loblaws or something, and I was working in a particular area where I was managing a big transformation, they said, hey, I'm really interested about that transformation and particularly that XYZ element of it. Could we have a chat about it? I'm really intrigued with it, and I'm particularly interested in that whole initiative in the setting of the strategy of Loblaws. That's a much more compelling reason to connect.
Common ground.
Gary, we have a few people with hands up.
Oh, sorry.
Leon, Agnello, and I think Zvezda had as well.
Yeah. Could we take Leon first then, please?
Yeah, so do you have any tips on writing a cover letter when applying for a job?
Yeah, know the company.
All right, thanks.
Sorry, that's a tradition. I mean, did you watch a podcast?
Yes, I did.
All right. So, what did you learn from the podcast?
Yeah, the company first strategy of, understanding the company, what they require, and, selling yourself based on what exactly they need.
No, but you realize the difference between the traditional job search where you're just sending in paperwork, basically,
Yes.
because that's what you're describing. I'll just send in some paperwork and hope, or I actually do something active and I go and talk to people inside the organization, without a job being there, and then find my way into a job because I've created an impression about me. So when a need starts to develop, I'm first in line. So a cover letter doesn't, I mean, I would suggest, and this is probably the bit which I didn't cover in the podcast, is say if you've got 4 or 5 companies and you've done this deep research, maybe 2 days on each one, we'll list the 10, 15 points that of real importance that you can leverage when you go and try and introduce yourself via LinkedIn. That, oh gosh, I've lost my train of thought. Sorry, Leon. I'll come back to what you've raised or what I tried to raise there. Yeah, right, I've got it. So these 4 or 5 companies, just for clarification, they don't actually have to be in the same industry. They can be in lots of different industries, or it can be the same, or it can be like 50% in well, whatever it is, 2 or 3 companies in retail, 2 or 3 companies in manufacturing. But you'll find that the issues are very similar. The specifics are very peculiar. If that's true, and I think it is because I've worked in lots of different companies, that your resume, your LinkedIn, just has to pick up the core issues that these 4 or 5 companies that you're trying to get into. What are their core issues, and do you have experiences that would add value to these organizations? I.e., anything else you've done is kind of irrelevant. And I would say I lead with me first. I'm having conversation with a company first. And then they're probably saying, that certainly happened to me when I came to Canada, and I was meeting between 8 and 10 presidents every week because I was just networking like a crazy man. And for a year that was. Hardly anybody was interested in my resume. 1 or 2 people said, "You have got one, haven't you?" I said, "Yeah, I've got one. Do you want one?" But they'd met me for 2 hours before or an hour before. So the resume is kind of irrelevant by that point. It was just like, just in case something had to happen. But I was networking without a purpose, because if I had that level of energy with a purpose, I'd have had a spectacular career in Canada rather than the one I have. Right. Sorry if that didn't answer your question. I think I answered it directly, which was, what's the cover letter in the context of a company first strategy?
Yes, yes, it was of value. Thanks.
Okay, all right, thank you. Agnello?
Yes, so good evening, everyone. Hi, Gary.
Hi.
Thanks for your time and presentation. Was wonderful. And I listened and watched the podcast, and I took notes about the 4 to 5 companies that write, and I actually did this, and it's helping me a lot to directly align the values of the company with my values. And when I apply for jobs now, I'm more like, okay, these jobs I'm applying, but this job, any job in this, any position in this company, I'm be able to do because I really want to be part of this company. I can tell one of this company, one of them is Mars. Mars has values aligned with mine, but I try to make right on point. So what I'm doing right now, exactly what I said on podcast, doing network. So I'm sitting with a lot of people last week, this week, and change a lot of ideas, and it's helping me a lot because every time that I sit with another one, they have a different point of view, and this is helping me a lot to tailor my resume, understand more my ambitions, what I can do right now, what I can do in the future, what I can do like in 3 months. And my question is, sometimes, for example, I saw like a company that I want to work, but I want to talk with like maybe a director or a VP. And usually sometimes this person is not so much active on LinkedIn. They have like an operational manufacturer to handle. Sometimes they have a manufacturer in North America and US and Canada to handle. So the question is, how can I get noticeable for this person on LinkedIn? Maybe some tips, like maybe not connected directly, but for more like a senior manager in person, how to get been notable.
Yeah. So I think the question was, right, let me step back from this. What I learned from my own networking when I first came to Canada and started going at it fairly hard, let's say, was the people we would imagine to have the hardest jobs as CEOs, presidents of a company, because everything lands on their desk one way or another, actually had the most time. And I know this from my own experience of being like when I've been an interim CEO, that your job as a leader of an organization is sometimes to get roll your sleeves up and get really stuck in if there's a little bit of a disaster starting to emerge. And the rest of the time it's orchestrating. It's making sure things are done properly, and people are doing their jobs, etc. So we might imagine that when if we just send a LinkedIn request, nothing on it, to somebody who's a VP, director, CEO, COO, whatever it might be, we could imagine that they might say, who's this? I don't want to know. Click, ignore. But if we were to have done the detailed research on the organization and think, what is that guy, or what lady, guy in a more generic sense, what would he really be interested? What's top of his mind, his or her mind, that I could encapsulate in that LinkedIn note to say, I'm really intrigued by X, Y, and Z. Because you've done your research, you've got those 10 or 15 points ready to go for that specific company. And then you say, I'd really love to have a chat with you, just a quick 10-15 minute chat, just to really get myself up to speed on that. And you could even be a bit more bold and say, look, you must be really pleased with how that project's going. And I'd like to, come on, not sharing that success, but learn more of that success and learn more about the learning points. Because if somebody's had a success of something, they'd probably be okay about saying, well, actually, we took a wrong turn here, wrong turn there, but in the end, we overcame that and made a success of things. So there's lots of ways when you've done the research, you found this 10 or 15 points of interaction that you can have. And as I think you mentioned earlier, that you start with this, but then you refine what that is, because you've just done it externally. When you go inside the organization and start having these conversations, your hypothesis becomes slightly changed because you're learning real time. Not everybody will tell you the truth, and you've got to be able to sort of have your antennae in to say, is this adding to your hypothesis strength, or is it weakening it, or should we just dismiss it? But by the time you get to the real decision maker who's got that gap, you'll have developed a whole, 10 or 15 points really refined in great detail. So you can have a really informed conversation. It's much better than just turning up for a job and going, hey, I've got some great stories, I've got some transferable skills. Let's go. And they go, I've heard that one before. Next. And compare that to a conversation where they've reached out to you because you've got some advocates in the area who just say, look, Agnello, just recently spoke to him. He's really sort of dead keen on this capital project we've been working on. He really showed some great insight in that conversation. He came across very positively, very passionately about our company. Why don't you talk to him? He said, well, it sounds like a great recommendation. Bring him in. And it's Agnello. It's already setting up for success. All you have to do is turn up and carry on that momentum. Because you don't know there's a job yet, but people have told you that there's an opening starting to develop here because they're on your side. And if anybody who did, for the people who didn't watch the video and didn't catch what I said about Walmart, this actually happened. This isn't sort of made up stuff. I actually did this with Walmart only to find out the job that I thought I was applying for or trying to get in front of somebody to get the job before they went out to the market actually had changed so substantially that it was not worth doing. So I kind of withdrew. But in my advocates inside Walmart at the time, I ended up talking to the chief, not for recruitment purposes, but the lady at the time who was their chief human resources officer for international division. That's not just Canada, it's international. She just reached out and said, yeah, let's have a chat. I've heard lots of good things about you. Let's have a chat. Unfortunately, I talked for 27 minutes of the 30. She talked for 3. We did a good conversation on a Friday afternoon about retailing. Did that help?
Yes, and more homework to do, but it's good.
Yes, good.
And for those who, didn't have a chance to watch the podcast, yeah, do it. It's really good. And before, after watch it, put in practice what Gary is saying. Yeah, I recommend.
Yes.
Thank you, Gary.
Oh, you're welcome. I'll send you a check tomorrow. Vesta.
I have to admit I haven't watched it, but I will after I hear all of those. Gary, very nice presentation, and I love your point of view. I have 2 questions for you. First one is, from your experience, what is your best advice for someone who is changing industries. I had a young professional coming to me today, international student enrolled in a supply chain program, and he's saying, what's my best way to move from the hospitality industry into the supply chain field? And my second question will be, when you have a job interview with someone, and after that you connect with them on LinkedIn, do you find this as a conflict of interest? I'm just curious to hear your perspective.
Well, on the second question, not really. They're available on LinkedIn at any time. And there was a time when I would actually go and creep what I call creep their profile, which is go and look at who I'm going to meet. It's perfectly natural to do that. And why wouldn't you just connect at the time? And if you've just recently met them, and if it's in the part of a formal recruitment process, you say, look, yeah, really love meeting with you. It's a great chat. Like to keep in contact even beyond this. If this doesn't work out, no problem, but let's keep in contact. So I don't see any conflict of interest at all in that. I don't think that's unethical at all. Coming back to your colleague, your student, I guess, I think the same. I think that the thing applies the same. If he's coming into Canada, the kind of newcomer, he might have limited vision about all the companies that we have here and which ones would be like really super to work for, which ones may not. But he can still apply the same. He or she can still apply the same process. But I would say that he or she might want to think about what does the hospitality industry look like here? And are there any sort of like remarkable organizations? Because then he or she can, is it he or she? So I don't have to keep saying that. Is it he or she, Vista?
It was a he.
Yes. All right. Thanks. Thank you. So I was talking, I'll give you a parallel. I was talking to somebody, if you came to the ASCM meeting on a couple of Sundays ago, whenever, we have I met a guy, I think he's from Bangladesh or Sri Lanka. He had a background in pharmaceuticals, was interested in supply chain, and he said, kind of, what should I do? And, well, guess what? Yeah, but they do it differently here. Great. You got some discussion points before you even start. Because if you're saying that this is how we did it there, this is how you do it there, I'm sure there's something that we can talk about where perhaps create some innovation or something like that together, or co-create some kind of great scheme of things where I can bring some of the things I've done from over there and maybe enhance or give us a stronger competitive advantage. So I would suggest that in hospitality, if you think about things like restaurants, food service companies, QSRs, etc., they all have some kind of supply chain. Like McDonald's has that. Is it Martin Brower's or Ritz? And obviously a lot of restaurants when I was at GFS were served by GFS. Who, if they weren't served by GFS, majority would have been served by Cisco. And then you've got regional players like Flanagan in Ontario and whatnot. So it's often probably easier for somebody to break into an organization where they have some previous experience. Doesn't have to be a lot, but it makes it easier, because if they say, I don't want to do hospitality, I want to go and do electronics or some manufacturing or something. It's a bit of a stretch. Doesn't mean it's not doable, but it might need even more energy. And if they have very good presentational communication skills, they're good at building relationships, actually the industry doesn't matter. But if there's sort of chinks in the armor, then maybe they should center themselves on taking the industry they've been in a different country or different area and think about focusing on that first to develop their list of, like, say, 10 companies, and then paring it down to 4 or 5. And that might include some companies that they've bumped into on, when they're going out shopping, or, gone off and done something like visit their family or something. They found this brand or something and put it on the list, and then check the why, do the detailed research, find those points of discussion points, and then you know, at least when you've got the framework to start having those networking conversations.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Well,
Gary,
thank you.
we have Stella, Yvonne, and Daphne with some
Okay.
questions as well.
Let's have Stella, because I talked to her yesterday. Stella, would you like
Hi
to?
everyone. Hi Gary. Just I have a question about the statement you mentioned in the slide that the employer buys the logic. What does it mean to understand an employer buying
Yeah.
the logic, and how can job seeker learn it?
Yeah. Right. Say if I'm a decision maker and you're pitching me with something, I don't listen to you until I believe that you understand my needs. Imagine this as an extreme. I've got my resume and it's something completely detached from what you need. And I'm sending it to you and I'm standing there with it and going, hey, I can sell you fish and chips. What? You want curry? Yeah, fish and chips. And that's basically what the conversations we're having when we're using a traditional job search. Sometimes we get through because our communication skills, our relationship building skills are so strong. And maybe some of the ways that we present our stories are so strong, compelling, that we break through regardless. But I just think this is very transactional. So we get that job. What happens next? Maybe we didn't want this job. Maybe we don't like the company. Maybe we don't like the people in it. Because we didn't do any real research. We didn't research externally. We didn't research internally. So we found ourselves in a situation. And guess what? You'll find people littered all over LinkedIn who've been in jobs for a year, 2 years, and they move on. And sometimes there's gaps because either they get elbowed out. Sorry, they what's the word? Restructured, rationalized, delayed, whatever it might be. But basically, there's a mismatch between really what the culture, what the organization wants from that person, and what that person's prepared to give. But imagine a situation that you've got your 4 or 5 companies or whatever that number is, and you've done your detailed research, and you've got advocates inside that organization. You know what that culture, you know what you're going to go into. And as a result of that, it's likely to be a very strong match between you, what value you're going to bring, and where that value is going to be optimized inside that organization. And that alone will give you, I want to say, longevity inside that organization. But there's one important trick that you must know, and that is there's 2 levels of networking that must continue when you've landed somewhere, regardless if you go it through the transactional, I've got transferable skills or not. You must network inside the organization with the people that you might have bumped into, but certainly in this approach that you will have bumped into. Keep those on your side. Find the real stakeholders who are going to help and impact on your career. So they may not have been on your networking campaign, been desirable, but you might not have been able to get to them quickly enough. But you must continue to network inside the organization, because networking is a skill and it must be constantly practiced. And secondly, say if you had 5 companies, you're in one of them, you've actually landed in one of them, you must keep networking with the other 4. You've put an enormous investment of that deep research, lots of networking. You need to keep your brand vibrant in that organization. And it's not being disloyal. It's saying that you're here, you're happy, but if somebody else believes that you can bring more value to their organization, then you go there. But you're doing it as a part of a career choice, as opposed to, oh, I didn't quite work out here. Oh, better go and find another job.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Yvonne? Sorry if I've got these out of order, but Yvonne?
Hi, Gary. Great presentation. I just want to say I particularly like where you talked about having a company first approach. I think that's like really good. But I just want to know, like, what's your take on having like a career audit or like a skills mapping to know, because sometimes it can be quite difficult to know exactly what roles a person is a good fit for, especially when you're under a lot of pressure to find a job, and considering how the market is like really brutal now, where you really have to like hit the nail on the head, you know. And of course, when you talk to people, you want to be able to talk with authority to show people that you know what you're talking about. So what's your take on that? Like how we can carry what skills market?
Yvonne, it's so interesting when you change your perspective, you can hear questions in a different way. So normally, if I happened to be talking about job search, and I'd have fallen straight into a trap of saying, well, you know, you have to show achievements and, you know, demonstrate these skills and have keywords in your resume and be able to present these skills with examples of, you know, the star stories and all those kind of things. They're all, I was just about to say poppycock, but that probably won't translate very well here. But this is all part of the traditional job search, and it's all the mechanisms that are flawed and will result typically, and I've talked to people who are newcomers, students looking to move on from college or university, mid-level managers, senior executives, and they're all telling me at one level they have maybe the first month or two might be a lot of activity because they're basically going into a market, grabbing whatever roles there are, looking fresh and new, and then all of a sudden they go into this pattern of having one or two meetings, interviews, let's say, a month, and then it's 6 months in, they're going, you know, they're looking at the television and going, oh, life's tough out here, you know, we've got the Trump tariffs, we've got this, we've got that, what do we expect? Actually, they're following a flawed process, and what you're describing there is part of that transferable skills. You know, all I have to do is tidy up my resume and I'll get a job somehow. And I'm saying to you that if we turn that on its head and actually went for a company first approach, your skills are less relevant, right? Like from a get-go. They become more relevant when you're in front of that real decision maker, that somebody's let loose, that there's an opportunity just about to break. This is breaking news. Somebody's like, you know, there's a gap. And people are advocating for you, and you go in and you talk about, you know, you want to work in the warehouse, and you know, that's where you're going to land the biggest skills. But you know enough about the organization to know about how to phrase that. It's all about the communication of where you're going to deliver the greatest value. Just turn up and saying, I've got a few skills. It's like, okay, so what? So I would. Yeah, I know it sounds kind of risky because you know this process. You tidy up your resume, you go easy apply on LinkedIn or Indeed or wherever it is, go onto a company website and go through all that machination, and you sit and wait, and you sit and wait and wait and hope. And something happens on LinkedIn. So, oh, I know that job title. I'm going to ram in my resume. Well, I'll show them. Oh, it didn't come back. Oh, I tell you what, next time I'm going to put it through job scan and make sure I've got the right keywords, get it through that ATS machine. Oh, and I'm talking to the intern. They're screening me, hopefully screening me in, but oh, I'm not hearing anything for 2 weeks. Oh, shall I go and bother them, or is it a bit impolite for me to chase them up? Oh, am I being ghosted again? Oh, so the other approach is you could have 3 or 4 meetings a day, every day of a week, because you're going to generate lots of traffic. But you have to do the hard work first. And most people misconstrue this. And it's so funny. And when I'm describing this sort of on a sort of cut down version, I say, yeah, but I am doing the research. And I say, how long? I say, well, you know, it's a couple of hours. I said, really? If I spent 2 hours on 2 hours on a job, I just about squeeze into like the first round of interviews and collapse. If I do 2 days on one company, nothing else, clear out my email, nothing, and just focus on what can I find out about that one company that's going to give me 10 or 15 points to talk to people about inside that company, to find my way inside that company, to build advocates inside that company. So when that gap starts to emerge, they tell me, because that's happened. That's happened to me. I'm sort of living proof that it happened. But you have to build relationships. You have to go in, you know, you have to show real interest in that organization.
Okay, we have Daphne and Victor. So Daphne?
Daphne.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Daphne Martinez. I'm an MBA student, but I have 8 years of experience in procurement. I was a procurement specialist in my country, and I have found quite difficult to find entry-level positions, even an entry-level position here in Canada as a procurement assistant and everything. So that kind of insights that you have done, that you have given us, are very valuable for me. But I have a question. I was thinking in become a member of this association, and also I was thinking in maybe take some courses or certifications, but I don't know if it's gonna be valuable for me because I don't have Canadian experience right now. So I don't know if it worked to me to start with this certification, even if I haven't worked in a Canada company. So I don't know. What are your recommendations about it?
So the approach I'm suggesting to you, that Canadian experience thing, so I'm just trying to unravel my thoughts because there's so much you gave me and I wanted to unpack quite a lot of it. So if you got this let's call it traditional route, you put in your resume in, the first thing you see, you haven't worked in Canada. Gotcha. Or, it's a project management role. You haven't got PMP. Gotcha. You're out. They're screening you out all the time, screening you out because you're just filling out the paperwork, putting it in a machine and hoping. Stop hoping. Start talking to people. Start thinking about those companies you really want to work for. Do your deep research and reach out to people with, those points I've indicated. Try and engage in proper conversation with the companies that you want to work for. And if you, and I don't mean this to be dismissive, if you're looking for like a chief supply chain officer, you may have a bit of a problem. But if you're looking for an entry-level role and you come across good relationship building, strong communication skills, real passion for this company, not this industry, for this company, and you're interacting with people in a positive way, people really sort of like talking with you, and you can ask them, you'll know when you're connected with somebody, that you'll have a conversation about 6 months later. This happens to me all the time. Or I'm trying to help somebody. They say, "Oh, do you know somebody in Agnello did this with me?" So he's standing. Said, "Gary, do you know anybody in Mars?" I said, "No, actually, I don't." No, I thought, I'll go onto LinkedIn, do I? Yes, I do actually. And I haven't spoken to this guy for 2 years. And he's been through a few steps himself. And I've lost track of where he was. And now he's in Mars. All right. So I just reached out to him and said, "I've got somebody that I think you'd like to talk to. Would you be able to have a chat with him?" And he said, "Yeah, no problem." Connected. And I think Agnello met him probably last week sometime. So when you're making connections with people, when you can speak, you don't speak to them for 2 years and they still are prepared to, a door can be open to that person to help. So I'm saying to you that if you're going to keep putting your stuff in, you're filing your paperwork and hoping for the best, you carry on doing that, but I ask you to do something else to secure your future. So try and think about these 4 or 5 companies, and you pick the number. Don't tell Gary said it's 4 or 5 companies only. No, you pick the number. Think about your alignment with these organizations. Then do the deep research. To imagine spending 2 days. It sounds, well, I need to get a job. Spend 2 days. Find those 10 or 15 key points of what keeps them up at night, where the opportunities are, where the challenges are, what they've been recently up to, what changes have they had, which might reflect in some developing trend inside the organization, what their competitors might be doing, but they're not doing. Write those down there. And then, sort of try and classify these by the departments, and then go and reach out to those people in those departments, particularly close to where you think you want to be, and build that advocacy for you. It takes a bit longer, but I tell you this, the people who've been in job searches for 6 months, 9 months, even for entry-level roles, because it can be tough when you keep getting these kickbacks, not enough Canadian experience. You don't have to worry about Canadian experience if you're going direct. I mean, I don't know if you heard earlier on, I said for a whole year, I met 8 to 10 presidents, CEOs every week. I had no Canadian experience. I had a couple of lists that were completely incoherent, and everyone said, why are these companies on that same list? I don't know. I just picked them out from a directory and thought we'd have a chat about them and see what happened. But yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Daphne. Victor.
Hello, Victor.
Good evening, Gary. How are you?
I'm good, thank you very much, Mr. Victor. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Gary, I just wanted to expand on a couple of things that that you had mentioned about doing your research. One, you got to do the work. It's your job now, right? Basically, it's your job to find a job. That is your new job, right? When you're contacting the companies, find out what their issues, their problems, their opportunities are. And when you go into a job, be prepared to discuss solutions to some of these problems. If you get in front of a decision maker and you're already working for them, they're going to be rather impressed with that. So yes, work your network, definitely. Find out what's going on, and then find out what you can do. Offer them the help, show them what you can give them, and they will jump at you. Again, there's an old adage that says, whatever you want, give it away. That's in a job search, that's what it is. Give yourself away. You want to go there, show them how much you want to go there. And if I could just make a comment to Daphne, you may have foreign experience. Find an association that will, and this as part of, you continue your job search, but find an organization that will give you credentials to acknowledge your past experiences that you're bringing with you, to get your competencies recognized, and that will help you with your job search also.
Thank you.
Thanks, Victor. There's so many good points in what you said. That one of the ones was, as I mentioned earlier on, is when you've landed in a job, you must continue to keep that skill active, that networking skill. And I think in the podcast, I said, you must go and find extra responsibilities. If you I always say, if you're working in a warehouse, turn up on time, take on extra shifts, be positive, find solutions for the problems. Don't just say the racking's bent, find a way of fixing that problem for, take the weight off the management team. I've seen a number of newcomers starting in those kind of picking jobs and driving truck jobs. They don't stay there for very long, not if they've got an attitude, a positive attitude to making progress. They turn up on time, smile, take on extra shifts. It's really quite easy to make progress. But I would say this: go and find a company you want to work for, because that makes all the difference. It will show you will feel, it's not work, it's what you want to do. You will be there, not because the boss is still there, you'll be there because you want him to do a very good job. You want to build your career inside that organization. So it's so much easier than just, in my mind, and just finding a job through the easy apply. You get a bit of attention, you find a job, you find yourself in a situation you didn't really understand the job because you didn't do enough research, you didn't have that genuine conversation with the manager, you just sort of told your stories and somehow it connected. You didn't have advocacy inside the organization, so everybody sort of go, what's he doing here, what's his game, how do we trip him up, rather than having advocates around you. Hey, I'm glad you're here because I really loved that conversation you had with me. Oh, you want some more information, or you want a hand with that job, or whatever it is. it's a whole different world that you're opening your eyes to. And you're right, say, do the work. Because everyone that I end up speaking to generally wants a shortcut to success. And we know that there are very few shortcuts to success. And the most obvious one is blooming hard work.
Okay, we have Leon.
So I have a question about building relationships, and let's say I shortlist my, list of 4 or 5 companies,
Yep.
and I find out who the key decision makers are in the company, and I try to connect with them. Now, would they be open to sharing information about the company to me, to an outsider?
Right, let me just try and explain a bit because it's a great point you raise. Right, so imagine that you've done what you've said. You found your companies, you've done your why check, you've done your deep research, and instead of walking into the organization gently and testing out your hypothesis, you just say, I'm going to write straight to the CEO. I'm going to tell him what for. And imagine he says no, he doesn't accept your invite, you don't go any further. What do? Do you write off 2 days hard research and 10 or 15 points? Do you just say that's it? Because that's basically what the outcome is. I say to people, especially people who from university and whatever, they probably have people from that same school or at the university or college who already work or have worked recently inside that company. Go and talk to those, get a bit of like knowledge about, talking to those people inside that company or have recently been in that company. I say go horizontal first and then start to move up when you've built your confidence. Networking is a skill. You won't have it straight away if you've never done it. You have to kind of ease your way into networking and building that skill set, which is about developing rapport, building relationships, communicating important issues, being sensitive about certain things, and being able to present yourself well. So yeah, you get to a decision maker after a while. And ideally, the decision maker gets the idea of this is the decision maker gets to you before you get to them. But sometimes the opportunity doesn't arise quick enough, so you end up speaking to the person who really is potentially got the opportunity you're looking for, but the opportunity hasn't arisen yet. But if you have actually ended up through going horizontal and then going vertical, you bump into the decision maker on that way. At least they know you, and they're probably thinking, "Get an opportunity. I like this guy. He's good. I haven't got a budget right now, but I'm going to find a way of getting that budget. I'm going to get him in here."
Thank you.
Okay, you're
Thanks,
welcome.
Leon. Any other questions? We're already just after 7.
I have one.
Elena,
Gary, thank you very much. My name is Elena. I just recently graduated from supply chain management program. Yeah, and I have the huge problem with job searching, and I'm very glad to hear that someone just recommend do the same thing that I do. So people in general workshops about job searching, they just tell me, apply as much as you can. But what if I don't want to? I have my list. I have no Canadian experience as Daphne. I have a list of 7 companies I want to work for. And I have the huge experience, 15 years in China, in international supply chain management. And the main thing I heard today for me is the way I'm doing it, the matching my skills with company requirements, right? As I found in my research, it doesn't work well, so I should go to social media. And yeah, thank you very much for this point. It's very important for me, and I will do. And thank you for your podcast. And it's not like question, it's just recommendation for students or recent graduates. The information I want to share that the first step in your research about the company, because a lot of companies, right, and is especially when you newcomer to Canada, you cannot handle all of them, right? The best way is to start with database, start with study cases, and start with marketing researches. Is the shortest way to understand overall company strategies, company values, and the way they doing things. And if the way they do is aligned with your own own, I don't know,
Disposition.
feeling, yeah. So you can do your research more deeply. And I just want to say thank you, Gary. And yeah, my next step would be go to social media. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and yeah, I would say, as I said to, I don't know if it was Yvonne or, but anyway, it was, I think she stumbled on a no Canadian experience. So this is a trapping of going this traditional way. You're going to get knockback after knockback after knockback, and you may get a meeting somehow in a month or 6 weeks or 2 months time, and you'll be very excited, and you'll only have one meeting with that tree effectively, and you'll have to go again. But you would be ghosted. Everything would be put on hold, and you'd be waiting and waiting, and shall I, shan't I, shall I? Well, I don't know. I say don't do any of that, but some people can't be persuaded. I'd say try this as an alternative. If you give it 3 months versus 3 months of just sitting there hoping that some of the paperwork connects with somebody, that just spend 3 months on this, spend 2 days solid research on an organization, build up those points. Regardless if you've worked in Canada before or not, if you're an entry level person or not, or if you're a senior executive or not, just do this. Just do this. Go and talk to people inside that organization, one of those organizations you've got on your list, with something meaningful to talk about. So you're networking with a purpose, and see where that takes you in 3 months, and work at it hard. A job search is 5 days a week, 12-hour days, and ideally 3 meaningful meetings, not just bumping into somebody at Sobeys and saying, "No, what have you bought today?" It's actually having sit-down chats, whether or not it's by Zoom or Teams or actually a coffee at Timmy's, to have meaningful conversations. And if you can imagine how your confidence will grow by having meeting after meeting after meeting on subject areas that you've got a high degree of knowledge of, but you're getting that knowledge refined within each conversation. Somebody's giving you something more to puzzle back into your theory or hypothesis about how this organization works and what are the key issues it's facing. Somebody's written something in the chat. I didn't quite catch it.
Yeah, Agnello put his LinkedIn profile, and Farnoosh actually commented. Farnoosh is an instructor with UCW, University Canada West, and is going to share it with his students as well.
Okay, excellent, good.
Great, thank you, Alina. It's probably about 7:15. Do you want to continue, or?
If you want, well, if nobody's got any more questions, I hope I haven't trampled over everybody. I am a bit of a stampede person that I think I feel so strongly about that. We've all been tricked. Some of us get through it and we don't know we've been tricked. We got lucky, but I think this approach may provide more I'm going to say, certainty in the world that we're currently in, which is very uncertain. So companies are still recruiting, but they may not tell you that they're recruiting. They may not advertise, but they still have need. If you imagine that the average company has a churn rate of 10%, so if it has employees of 2,000, 200 of those are leaving. They might be, you know, pick-in and transport jobs, but some of those are in the office. Some of those are in areas that you would be interested in. So if you could just click the slide, please, Manly. I'd like to thank you all for engaging with this with me. It's for us Ontario people, it's pretty late in our day, and I think for some of the BC people, it's still relatively late. But I'd like you to subscribe to my channel and try and help an old guy get to about 500 so I can get more of the message out to people. Please follow me on LinkedIn. And join over 5,000. I've just hit over 5,000 people or followers recently. And lastly, please help me rescue thousands of folk from a flawed, ineffective process based on hope and paperwork. Please do take my podcast and send it to colleagues you know that might benefit from listening to it. And when this conversation has been put up on the on my channel, that send that as well, because I think the two things together is, one is, if it didn't hit you the first time through the podcast, I'm hoping the message will hit the second time, because we've had some really fantastic questions and it's really pushed me hard. So thank you all for that, to actually clarify some of the detail of what I'm saying. So thanks, everybody. Thanks ever so much, Manly, for this opportunity to talk to people about this. I think it's an important career decision that people can make. I would say they must make if they're going to be successful in their career.
Great. Thanks, Gary. Much appreciated. Thanks, everyone, for attending. We will put together the video recording. I'll send it over to Gary. He'll post it on his YouTube channel. I'll also share his LinkedIn profile in the email that I send out to you, also with the link to the recording. Hopefully you guys follow up on a couple other sessions that we may be having. We have a BCIT presentation coming up 2 days from now, a case study consulting engagement that one of the groups did. As well, a bunch of things going on with the chapter. So definitely please take a look at some of the events that we've got going on. We always take recommendations. So if there's something that interests you, a topic that you think is something that others would be interested in, you know, please share. Right. So thanks, everybody, for attending again. And we'll talk to you soon.
Cheers, everybody. Good luck.